Hello everyone, my name is Sebastian Serrano. I'll be presenting about the research experience for undergraduates for the REU Seminar and how you can get these internships. So this is quite dense and it's quite a long thing, so don't save questions till the end, just ask them as you go. So, let's start off. So this entire PowerPoint recording, as well as anything that I mentioned being important, is going to be at the end. So, what's an REU? The research experience for undergraduates was an NSF, or National Science Foundation funded program, where basically you grab a bunch of undergraduates and you send them out all across the country to do scientific research for the summer. It's 10 weeks and you work 40 hours a week. It's full-time commitment. Now it's not exactly 40 hours, it's not going to be clock in at 8. Oh, you don't clock in at 8 and leave at 5 or 4, whatever. You speak out with your advisor, but you're expected to put in around 30 to 40 hours of work. But it may be less, it may be more. But if it's more, don't let them push you to work 50 to 60 hours. So the program is fully funded. It's not an unpaid internship. You're given a stipend, so your money, your house is paid for, you might have roommates, and also since it's all across the country, your flight to that community or to that college is going to be paid for. The program itself, while everyone can apply to it, it's mostly aimed at students with no research experience, which may be a lot of you since we're at a non-research institute. So, what does it encompass? Essentially, as you see here on the left, right left, there's a bunch of different categories, most of them in STEM, but we do have some humanities, people in society, and education. But for the most part, it's a STEM research internship where you're across, here if you sum those up, you get 750 different opportunities, and it's across all fields of science. Physics, as you can see, there's physics, astronomy, biology, chemistry. And within these, there's a bunch of different subfields. So not only is it biology, but it could be evolutionary biology. It could be not only chemistry, but material science, computational physics, etc., etc. And essentially any field you can think of will probably be available. As you can see here, when you sum those, it's 750. Now what's special about that, it doesn't mean there's only 750 slots to apply for. Within those 750 opportunities, you can apply, there's different projects. And anywhere from 1 to 30 with the average being around 10 to 15. As an example of that, here's one from Vanderbilt. This is a single REU application or a single REU program. As you can see, you have 30 roughly different projects. You have, let's see, you have nanostructures, you have photosynthesis, you have, let's see what else, a bunch of really advanced stuff, which is daunting, and I'll get to that later. You don't have to know what this means or how to do this as a subject to apply it. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right.
I'm sorry, you can have questions.
Of course.
I got a little late. Are you only here in South Florida?
No, entire country. And that's a slide on its own.
Oh.
And there's some, which I think is the next slide. No, it's a bit, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. So who is it for? Now you don't really have to have a good reason, you can just apply if you want to, but it's mainly oriented at people who want to go to graduate school or who want to go into academia. And not if you're going to med school. They really don't like that. So if you're gonna do it, don't mention it. But they really don't like it. So if you're gonna go for a PhD, a master's, or if you're just interested in it, that's your right to apply and you can do it whenever you'd like.
I have a question.
Of course.
So, what do you mean by they don't like that? Because I'm trying to go to medical school.
Sorry?
When you said they don't like that, what do you mean like they don't apply to medical school?
They don't, if you say on your application, I'm here to boost my resume for medical school, or just word it in some sort of way that you're going to medical school, they don't like that because the program is meant for people who want to go PhD or master's, not MD. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, do you really help with them?
I'm not sure if it can help because that's something someone who went to medical school would know. It probably would help, it looks good, but they don't, it's not meant for that. So if you're doing MD, PhD, that's different, and you can ask me later. Of course. So the experience, what's actually going to go on in this internship? It's not going to be like most internships where you work in an office and you answer calls or write write-ups or whatever. You're here to do research, which we'll go over later. Essentially, you'll be put into a research group, and these research groups have a specific structure. At the markers now. At the top, it's fine. I'll just find it. So at the top, you'll have a PI or a principal investigator. This is basically the boss. They're the one with the doctorate. They're the one running the research group. They'll have a specific program.
No, I'm
Hello.
repeating your class,
So,
I'm just repeating it.
hello. I'll make sure the same. So at the top of this, you'll have the PI. They're the ones calling the shots. They'll be your boss. Depending on their teaching style, they may be really hands-on. They may tell you, do this, let me help you. Or they may be hands-off, in which case you'll probably be working with a graduate student. These are people who are working towards their PhD, who are working towards their master's, and they know more than the undergraduate. They finished their bachelor's, they're working on their own research, they know how the lab runs, and you might look under them. Below these people, they're not really below, they're all equals in this. But then you have the undergraduate students. These are people like you, people from the institution, who are doing undergraduate research. They don't have the most skills, but they're there to help the lab. And additionally, most of them will be from that university. So you'll have some undergraduates, from Boston or from whatever. And then you'll have one or two people who came in from the REU program and are also just as new as you. Then you'll actually start doing research. Here you'll be given a task. You'll be given tasks around the lab. Go run this experiment. Go collect the data. Go code this. But you'll be given, most likely, a main program or main project for the summer, such as, all right, figure out why this doesn't work. Get these results back, or clean the data. That's basically what you do on the academic side, which is really broad. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. The non-academic, right? You'll be working around 30 to 40 hours, but you'll exist outside of that. You'll live in a house with roommates, most likely, unless you're really lucky. And then there'll be some field trips for the project. You might go to parks, you might go to national labs, or you might go to nothing. This isn't obliged, this isn't mandatory, but a lot of programs host them. And then you'll be outside of the, South Florida. But you can apply to the ones in FIU, for example, or FAU, or UM, whatever. That's totally within your right. And you may even stay in your own house. So, what exactly is, does anyone have any questions yet? Great. So, what exactly is research? It varies a lot. You could be running samples, you could be running experiments, you could be fixing machines, you could be coding. It varies heavily. But you could split them up kind of into these three categories, which have a lot of overlap. Like, you're not going to be split into experimental, theoretical, or computational. If you do experimental, you'll probably do these two. If you do this one, you'll probably do computational, et cetera, et cetera. So in experimental, you'll be running experiments, maintaining samples, upgrading equipment, figuring out why equipment doesn't work, collecting data and analyzing that data. So that overlaps somewhat with computational. Theoretical, this is probably what you think of when you think of research like in the TV shows. You'll just be writing papers, reading papers, doing math, trying to figure out problems, making equations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's more pure theoretical math. Lastly is computational, which as the name says, you're just doing coding, you write the code, you execute the code, you fix other people's code, you run simulations on supercomputers, et cetera, et cetera. See if anyone in Zoom, or does anyone in the Zoom have a question? And here's to answer your question from earlier. So where are they hosted? Effectively, every college in the US hosts one, if not more, or one, if not multiple programs. They'll be throughout the US, and for a very small amount, some will be in Antarctica, which is for the geology programs, they do like ice samples and things, and then some are throughout Europe, which is just basically, they just make it international for the sake of it. So it's just the same science. You're gonna be given housing, like I've said before, and the university will pay for it, or if they'll pay you to pay for it, which is what happens in Klein. And there are some virtual opportunities. If you really have to stay at home and you get accepted into a program, you can speak with your advisor or the person you were assigned to and see if you can work something out. And additionally, there are specific virtual only programs. But I recommend you do it in person if possible. So, when do you apply and where do you apply? Most applications are already open and they close in spring. Some close as early as January 31st, some are open to as late as April 15th. I recommend you start applying as soon as possible because as we'll get to in the next slides, it's a lot of work to apply. And I'll link this at the end, but there's a website where you can search any category, keywords, biochemistry, chemistry, material science, etc., as well as the NSF ETAP portal, which is somewhat like the Common App. If you guys were in high school, which most of you were, and you applied to colleges, anyone applied to the Common App? Yeah. So this is somewhat like you write an essay and then you just kind of click, and apply. So it's it's more streamlined, but it only has a really small fraction of the total REUs. And like I said, start now because it is a lot of work to apply. Yeah, what's your question?
Can you apply to like as many as you want?
Yes, of course. Apply to as many as you want. The only limit is how much effort it is to apply.
Okay.
And I'll get to that in a second, which is a good question. What do you need? A 3.0 GPA. This is the requirement. Now there are some exceptions. If you're an spectacular student outside the classroom and you have amazing letters and amazing research, maybe an exception will be made. Or if you take a semester and say, hey, I'm really going to boost it up after because something came up with my family, they may make an exception. There's no guarantees. But as far as what the NSF requires, like this on the website, a 3.0 GPA. Next is 2 letters of recommendation. preferably from people in the school, your professors, people from clubs, as in, who's hosting the club. And then personal statement. This part is what takes the most work. This is where you're gonna be spending most of your time if you end up applying. And then some questions will ask you, can you code? If you can't, what can you do? Why this program, etc. And then the resume CV. This is just so they can see more about you in general. So here's some common questions that they asked you just within the personal statement, and they just might ask you on the side. So they'll ask you, what are your research interests? What are your goals, professional, academic? Remember, these people, they want to hear that you're going to graduate school. You don't have to put that, but that's what they look for in students, not always. Why this program? There's a bunch of programs and they have a lot of overlap. So they might ask you, why University of Chicago's material science program? Why University of Texas biology program? And you'll answer because I'm a professor there, et cetera, et cetera. Why you? What skills you bring, your mentality, your mindset, or just why you like it so much. And lastly, this is the really important one, who do you want to work with? When you apply, you'll have to write that personal statement. And that personal statement, I highly encourage you say who you want to work with. Specifically say their name. I want to work with Dr. Smith because of his research in this, and that, which I'm very interested in. So, in that personal statement, which is what you're going to spend most of your time doing, you'll have to write, well, you can write it however you want, but here's just an example personal statement. Write a thesis, just like in middle school, lay out the format, background info, who you are, what you like, your experiences. Then, why you be a good fit, what you can do, what you bring to the table, which you might say, I've never done research before, I might not bring anything to the table, and that's okay, which I'll go over in a second. Next, why the school would be a good fit for you. Not only why you'd be for the school, but why they should, or why you'd be good for them. Here is where you really mention the professor, right? You say, I want to work with this person because I love their research in photosynthesis, or whatever. And then a conclusion where you say, thank you for reading, or whatever you want to put. This is just a template, you don't have to do this. Anyone have any questions so far? Is it competitive? Another one of those big questions you guys might be asking. Yes and no. If you look it up, people say, 800 people applied and 12 got in. Now, that's for like Harvard and really high programs. But in general, it is somewhat competitive. You'll have most likely hundreds of applicants and only 10 to 20 get in. Now, what's good for you guys is that this program is made for you. There's gonna be people who go to Berkeley, people who go to UF, who are applying for these programs. But the point of the REU is to connect students who don't have research opportunities, as well as minorities or underrepresented groups who pass the GPA threshold, to research. So yes, it's competitive, but just by being here, just by being a BC student, you have an advantage because you don't have research opportunity, and that's what the program is for. As an example, UH Rice, which is a really good university, they have a program, an REU program, specifically for community college students. So by default, the competition pool is going to be much slimmer or much thinner. So now, while it is somewhat competitive, yes, it's a lot of people, but you are at an advantage just because you're a community college student, underrepresented group. That doesn't mean you can apply to 2 and get into 2, maybe, but I still recommend you apply to multiple. For some people that can be 6, for some people that can be 20. This is a big quality over quantity thing. Don't just copy and paste, don't just apply to 40 because, well, if you apply to 40, that's a bit extreme, but just make sure you put effort into your essays. So, a lot of you may also be worried about the fact you've never done research before. You might not know what you have to do, and you might not know where you put, which is fine. The program was made for you with that in mind. The NSF, you're an undergrad, you're all undergraduates, right? So they pay to have you there. They pay you the money, and they pay for the housing, they pay for the flight. If they really wanted undergraduates so bad, they could just open it up to their local undergraduates, and they don't have to pay anything for the most part. So, but they still pay because they want you there. This is a program by the government to help you get experience. So they expect you to not know what you're doing, and they expect to train you. So your advisor may not know that, they might be a little rude, and they might say, you should know this already, but that's fine. You should not, do not worry about not knowing anything. If you're applying to mathematics and all you're taking is calculus 1, that's totally fine. I went to a physics 1, and all I had taken was physics 1, and I knew nothing. So it did take a while to get used to what was going on. So don't let the fact that you don't know what you're doing scare you or deter you. Trust me, don't let it define you. Now some benefits. So of course, the pay, it's around $6,000. This can vary. For example, in New York, some of them give $7,000, but it's around $6,000, which works out to $15 an hour. Now, while that might not be the best pay, they pay for your housing, they pay for your flight, and a big part of the time, will pay for your food. So that works out, once you do the math and add those up, it works out to around 20, 25 an hour. But it's not only the money, right? You also gain skills you won't get in the classroom. You're gonna be running experiments, you're gonna be coding in ways you don't learn in your intro to computing class. You're gonna be doing high level math that probably isn't offered here at BC, and it's not, put in most undergraduate schools. You'll learn soft skills also, things you won't learn in your working groups, working in research groups, problem solving. You'll probably have to do a presentation at the end of your seminar, or at the end of your REU, so you'll learn those skills as well. Tips. So I've said this before, but really in your personal statement, mention who you want to work with. It's really good to name drop because it says that you've done a little bit of research, so you know what you're doing. Keep all your essays in a single place. For those who have applied to scholarships, you've probably heard this before, where they say like, put all your essays into one big document so you can reuse them. This applies. Just make sure to change the names out, tweak some things, but the more you write, the better you'll get at it, and the more you'll have to use for your other statements. So it gets easier the more time you do. Lastly, ask your recommenders, your professors, your club advisors, your boss, whoever you choose, 2 to 4 weeks. These are busy people and writing letters can be hard. And also make sure they'll be okay with writing a letter. They might tell you, I can write a letter, but it won't be a good one because you've never read my class. So make sure to choose people who can write a strong letter for you. And of course, again, start early. So, some final words. You're gonna be in a really unfamiliar environment. Not only literally because you're gonna be across the country, living by yourself with a bunch of roommates from a different culture, but you'll also be in a lab environment, which you've taken your labs here at BC, but it's not the same as being in an actual research lab where there's no, cookie cutter, oh, this has to happen, and if this doesn't happen, you know why. The point of research is to figure out problems, to figure out why things work. So you're not gonna know the answers. You won't be able to Google why this happened. You're gonna have to figure it out yourself. That's probably the most different part about it. Next, stand up for yourself. You're gonna be in an environment with people might have big egos. Your advisor, your graduate students, the people you work with may not be nice. They may underestimate you. They may think, this is not guaranteed, but they may not think well of you. So if that happens, don't be afraid to speak for yourself and be like, hey, come on, I'm new to this. And lastly, if you get into multiple programs, communicate with those programs to see what it's like. See what the housing situation is. Will you have roommates? If so, will you have to share a room or will you have to share a house? What the summer activities are gonna be like. How big your group is. Groups can be as small as like 3 people. Over the summer, I essentially work by myself. But some groups are really big. Like a friend I had, they had a table and they couldn't even fit everyone at the table. So you communicate that. And then there might be some benefits. For example, fee waivers for going to University of California's. That's really the only one I can think of, but there may be more benefits. They usually, and it looks really good. If you want to go to Purdue, for example, and you go to the Purdue program, probably you're really good in your transfer application. And here's the useful links. Here's where you'll find the website with all the REUs. Here's where you'll find the ETAP portal, and then I put some links to communities you can join to ask people directly. So, does anyone have any questions? All right, well, and thank you for coming, guys. If there's anything, my email will be on this. If you have any questions, if you need help during the application, I'd love to help. And just let me know. Thank you for coming, guys. Does anyone in Zoom have questions? Hello? Anyone have questions in Zoom? You guys are free to go. Of course.
Could you tell everybody just a little bit
Oh,
about
I think you're still muted.
I'll get that in a second. I'm sorry, what?
You're muted.
It's okay, there's a recording. Yeah, it's probably the whole time. Hello, sorry about that. So, sorry for wasting your time. This will be all recorded on YouTube, so I'll just send it out to you. Just scan this QR code and I'll send it to your emails. I'm really sorry about that, I didn't hear that earlier. But, well, at least you got to see the slides. Yes, Dr. Nielsen, you have a question?
Oh, if you could just, tell just briefly about your research experience.
Oh yeah, so I went to University of California, Davis. I worked under Dr. Rina Zeeb. I mean, it's not a name you're gonna know. But am I muted still? Yes, I am. Okay, it's not helping. Sorry, so I'm speaking about my research experience. I did this in the summer of 2024. I went to University of California, Davis, which is California, and I did physics. My group was small, so like I said, most of it was just coding on my own. There was a machine that students made all themselves, and our work was to figure out why I was doing something. It was not reporting data back in the way it should have. So we had to figure out why it was and how we could fix it. So, any other questions while you guys can hear me? All right, thank you all so much.
When did you graduate? Did you graduate recently?
I'm graduating this semester.
You graduated. Is there a specific, time when you think it's best for them to apply, like?
As long as you're in college, as long as you're an undergraduate, it's research experience for undergraduates. That's all they care about. So it's a bit harder if you're a freshman, for example, than if you're a junior or a sophomore, but still apply. It doesn't matter. You miss every shot you don't take. All right, any other? Oh, yes.
Is it only over the summer or is it like?
Yeah, at least the REU is mostly over the summer,
Mhm.
but there are other research programs that are available in the spring and the fall,
Mhm.
but mostly it'll be 10 weeks in the summer.
Okay.
And that varies, yes,
Sorry.
of course.
Do you also take classes while doing the weekend or not?
Yes, I had a friend who did that, and it was really stressful, because remember, this is a full-time commitment, you're working 40 hours a week. So, how many classes were you planning to take in the summer? I mean, you can do it. I don't think you're supposed to, but it's like, they don't check. So go ahead and do that, but 4 classes over the summer, alongside the 40-hour work, and you'll be living by yourself. So you have to cook all your meals, do all of that. So go ahead and do it. I wouldn't advise it though, maybe less classes, but even then it's kind of, because remember, it's not only a research experience, it's kind of social. You're gonna be with a group of like 10, 30 people, and you're gonna be in a different part of the country. So not only do you do your research and get paid, but you might as well enjoy your experience there and not just take classes. But that's up to you. Should we unmute this? All right, any final questions? All right.
If you transfer out of BC,
Of course, this is for all undergraduates, so go ahead and transfer to BC, take your time. Just have to be an undergraduate for your institution, or 2. Anyone else?
There's some questions in chat.
Thank you. Did we get the attendance taken care of? Are you done? No, the slides, no. I'm very sorry about that. Yes. Yes, the attendance taken care of. I can just see them. You know, I'll just take a screenshot of this. You know. I'm very sorry about that. So yes, attendance is still taken care of, or attendance is taken care of. Anyone else? All right.
Visitors in Florida?
Yes, every college hosts one. FIU has one. FAU, pretty sure has one. Yes, FAU has one. Nova probably has one. Every college has one, essentially. Anyone else? All right, thank you so much. I think we're